Whoops. Something's happened.
What happened?
Oh, here we go.
Good morning.
How you doing, everybody?
Good morning. How are you?
Okay,
Hanging
who's everybody?
in with the world in
Good.
turmoil.
Oh,
Looks like you got quite an engineering project going in the background, Joe.
yeah, that's me 100 feet or so below ground in the
Whoa.
Bronx. That
Love
behind my head is the old Croton Aqueduct,
Yeah.
and to my that
Yes.
side is where we broke through when
Yes.
we built the water treatment plant, water filtration plant to get the water into the plant.
My goodness.
So yeah, that was a couple of days after they made the blast through and connected with the aqueduct. The original aqueduct was built around 1900.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, and if you can see this, behind it, it's still in, it was in great shape.
Yeah. So
New
what?
York water's got a good reputation, right?
I'm sorry.
New York water has a really good reputation.
Well, this was the biggest $3.2 billion boondoggle and
Whoa.
20 some odd years in the making.
Oh, yeah?
In the 60s, they found some bugs in the water. New York gets its water from three sources: Catskill, the Delaware River, and the Croton system. The Croton system is the one we're most familiar with here in Stamford. All the local reservoirs in Brewster and whatnot. That's all part of the Croton system. So that water flows down primarily into the Bronx, and the reservoir located on Reservoir Avenue by DeWitt Clinton in the Marshallese section of the Bronx. Hunter College and whatnot are there. That reservoir, and that primarily feeds the low-level areas, the Bronx and other low-level areas. And none of the water was ever filtered. But in the 60s, they found the bug. And the EPA, or the government, the EPA wasn't in existence at that time, but the government said that New York City had to clear up their water. Not too long after that, the water cleared up on its own. And this was an unusual circumstance. And the city kept fighting it. Finally, it went to the courts. They lost the appeal, and they had to filter the water. Now, this is only 10% of the total water that New York City uses. So on an average, the city uses over 1 billion gallons a day. This was talking about over 100 million gallons a day that had to be filtered.
Wow.
And obviously when you build it, you double the size. So they built a plant for 249 million gallons a day. The water never turned bad again. But in the meanwhile, every place they wanted to build it, the NIMBYs said no. Obviously, I mean, this was, so ultimately, there's a golf course if any of you guys went to the Woodlawn Cemetery tour, across Jerome Avenue, there's a golf course and park, Marshallese Golf Course. They finally got approval after it went through the state senate and the courts and everything else that they were going to build a water filtration plant, which is equivalent in size to 3 blocks by 3 blocks square. So if you take 42nd Street to 45th Street, from Madison Avenue to 5th Avenue, that's the footprint. And they were going to bury it.
Wow.
So see all that rock? That much rock, over 1 million cubic yards of rock, were blasted out and removed. And the plant was built underground. And ultimately, they covered the top of it for a green roof and put the driving range that was there, for the golf course. It's a big municipal drive, one of the better driving ranges in New York City, back in place. And ended up taking, I started working at the company in 2000, and they were still screwing around where to place it. The courts and the state legislature was arguing whether they were going to alienate the park, and the claim was, no, we're going to put the park back up. And I always joked around in privately with the group of guys saying, yeah, that's good. They're going to not alienate the park forever, but tell that to the 75-year-old guy that wants to go hit golf balls. So the construction took about, finally, well after I retired. So maybe 2015, 2017, they finished construction on it. And started out as a $2 billion, $1.8 billion project, ended up being 3.2 billion with a B. And they're very interesting, having built chemical plants. Lloyd,
Yes.
have we ever had pipe sizes that big?
Right. We built a big one too. It took us
We
4
built
years.
big ones, 36 inch. This was 13 foot. So
We built one big project we worked on was then was $75 million, but today would probably be $250 million project.
yeah, and this is 10
And
times.
that took 4 years, only because the Coast Guard wouldn't allow the company to ship in one of the raw materials. We had
Yeah. So I mean, it was a great experience. I mean, stuff that I never even thought of. When they were blasting the hole, they had to put monitors on all the buildings around the apartment homes and businesses in the close proximity to the area for vibrations. They had to have the rat patrol out checking for vermin. And I mean, these are things you don't really think of when you're building a chemical plant. But it was a great way to end a career. The difference is I built plants and traveled around the world. Spent time in Europe. Went to Japan. Built the plants even without going in the Mideast and all over the United States. I grew up in the Bronx. I went to college in the Bronx. And this last project was within walking distance from where I grew up and within walking distance from where I went to school. So what goes around comes around, and you get back home.
Yeah.
But that's me in the lower corner.
So Joe, what year was this photo?
This photo is around 2010, 2000, because I retired in 13. So this was shortly before I retired. I want to say maybe 2012.
Yeah, so
You
how
know,
long, how long had the project been going when this, at this point?
Oh, at this point, well, the project had been going on for years. I
20
mean, the
years, huh?
construction was probably 5, 6 years into
Wow.
construction.
Yeah,
I mean, it took them the better part of a couple of years to excavate. I mean, I got some photos that, let's see if I can pull them up while we're talking. Yeah.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
With climate change and the reservoirs being depleted of water, how healthy is the water going to be? And is there going to be restrictions on what we're going to be able to use?
Good question.
I left my crystal ball downstairs.
I got it here.
Well, wait.
Yeah, you know, that's a question that, going back to some discussions we had in prior weeks. I mean, how can you tell? I don't know. I wouldn't even venture a guess. I mean, look, we've got so much rain coming down, and then there's areas that have no rain, and they've traditionally been the areas that had droughts. Yeah.
2 years ago, we had a drought.
Yeah, I mean, it's
remember in the 50s, we had about a 5-year big drought in this region.
yeah,
We had
yeah.
subsequent droughts also.
Yeah, it's cyclic. I mean,
Yeah. So
I mean, this plant is supposed to you know, the capacity in this plant is supposed to what do I say? Help with some drought situations too, because it's double the capacity. But,
does it take water from the Hudson River?
no, they don't take water from the Hudson. They take water from Delaware River. I would imagine, yeah, I think they do have the ability in case of an emergency to take water from really upriver Hudson. But
Joe, what company did you retire from? If you
it
don't
was Metcalf and Eddy was the name of the company.
mind. Oh, okay.
And they were environmental engineering company, and they were taken over by a company called AECOM, and AECOM is probably now not the first, the second largest engineering, environmental, civil, infrastructure engineering company in the world.
Is Brown and Root up there?
Sorry?
Is Brown and Root up there?
Yeah, they're way down now. Jacobs, it's Jacobs, AECOM, and
Bechtel was big for a while. I don't know if they still are.
yeah.
Quit following them.
Yeah, all of those companies have been absorbed and eaten up by all of these other companies. It's incredible.
Is that Joe? That the project was founded by public money or 50-50, 30% or loans?
Government.
The taxes paid for the project.
Yeah, but say, but it was not also,
It's a city. It was a city of New York project.
Yeah, okay. So that okay, but it was for potable water, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, just can. But going back, of the question was raised.
Let me see if I can share. How do you share screen? Let's see.
Right in the
This-
middle, on the bottom.
Green button at the bottom.
Yeah.
Then pick one of your windows and then click share at the lower right button. There you go.
Okay, you see that?
Oh, not yet. Hang on.
Oh.
There you go.
Now we can.
That's the footprint of the plant.
Wow.
And that is,
Used to be a golf course, huh?
well, that's the driving range of the golf course, plus part of the golf course. And this is the street coming in, and this is where I drop down into the tunnel in this area here. But yeah, that is 600 by 600,
Feet.
and that's 100 foot down.
Wow.
That was after the excavation. Let me see if I can.
But this is the pumping station or distribution station?
That is the filtration plant.
The filtration plant, okay.
Yeah.
And so the filtration work, they are basically on chemical or also part mechanical of the form? All chemical?
It was no, it was let's see, here's if I get this over.
Oh, that's good.
You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
That's what it looks like now.
Yeah, that's great. So don't send the picture to the Chinese.
So yeah, it was a very interesting job, to say the least.
Okay, since we are concerned, was any study done about possible earthquake?
Possible what?
Earthquake,
No,
breaking.
no. There's a slight earthquake. Yeah, there's another picture of them
See.
excavating the rock.
Yeah, it's a solid rock, basically, in block. Yeah.
What about the health hazards of working in a place like that?
I'm sorry, Bob.
What about the health hazards? Lung cancer, asbestos?
No, that's just granite. That's just stone. Schist, granite, Fordham granite. I mean, it's nothing, there's no, I mean, no more harmful than working in any rock quarry.
And the one guy who's doing drilling is wearing a face mask.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's dust.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another picture of the tunnel. After the
There you
break.
are, Joe. In the back.
Yeah,
A little blurry, but you're there.
well, hey, that there is, let's see if I can get this bigger. Yeah. That is a tunnel boring machine.
Yeah, with the teeth on the front.
Yeah. Now, what they did, the tunnel that I was in, that was the main water supply tunnel. That was drill and blast. And they would set charges of dynamite and blast the hole. But the two tunnels for the water that was treated going to the city, from here to the city, this came from the reservoirs. They used a tunnel boring machine, and that's the same thing that they used to build the channel under the English Channel from Britain to France.
Yep.
So that's the type of machine. That was interesting because that was a couple of mile long tunnel, and this was on the front end of a train. We got to ride the train to the point where they were, the last point. And they had some interesting, they found, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Marshallou Parkway in the Bronx, that this went under the Marshallou Parkway at almost where DeWitt Clinton High School is. And there was a fault line. So they had to be extremely careful. Big fear was collapsing the street and everything else. But and this was down at that point, probably down 40, 50 feet below grade. And because it was going to the balancing reservoir that was there. So it was, quite a, yeah, that was, and that's how we entered in. They, instead of the machine hanging there, they put a cage and you go down in the cage. That's where the two tunnels came out. This was the supply tunnel coming into the plant, and this is the tunnel that was taking the water away from the plant. Typical of municipal jobs, to cover the wall and the plant so it didn't look terrible for the public, we had to build a wall around the plant. And this was one of the two corner fixtures. And we came up with the idea that since the water came from the Croton Reservoir, this was a picture, or they wanted it to resemble closely to the feeling that it was from the Croton Reservoir. So this was my little project, side project that I had, working with some of these water feature architects to come and design. We had to design the idea, and then they designed the water flow. So this was continual water flow being recirculated. It wasn't wasted, to emulate the spillway from the reservoirs.
Good.
Yeah,
Very
that
good.
only added a couple of $1 million to the project.
Bag it out.
I just want to see, I had somewhere a video. No, that's on, I think I had to go to YouTube, of the blasting of the, okay, let's see, how do I unshare now? Stop share. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. On you, if you remember a while back, on the History Channel, I believe it was, they showed the, what do they call them? The sandhogs.
Yep.
Blasting. Well, all of that blasting that they did, that was blasting for this project. All that tunnel blasting. And I mean, those guys were great guys. They were certainly the salt, I won't say the salt of the earth, but the rock of the earth. Yeah, they were rough guys. I mean, tough, I should say. But yeah, I didn't know what to expect when I went down in the tunnel, and there were 4 of us that went down there, and they were showing us everything. They were so proud of the work that they did. It was great. But yeah, that was I figured I'd post it up and put that up.
Oh.
Anybody I heard a good joke from my guy at Trader Joe's yesterday. Guy goes into a bar and just happens to go in when they're having a competition who can come up with the best drink toast. And, you know, one guy says, well, here's to God and country. And, all right. Another guy comes up, here's to the healthy life. Okay. And finally, this one guy comes up, he says, I want to live the rest of my life between the thighs of my wife. And they say, hey, that is, I mean, hands down, that's the best toast ever. So he wins and he's got free drinks for the month. So he's so happy. He goes home and tells his wife. And he said, oh, they had a toast competition and I won. And she said, oh, what'd you win? He said, drinks for a month. And what was the toast? She says, well, she says, I told them I want to live the rest of my life going to church with my wife. Oh, she was so tickled pink and pleased and everything else that, you know, she says, here, have another drink. And she gives him another drink. So next day, she goes out and doesn't she, fate would have it, she runs into one of his friends from the bar. And he says to her, he says, hey, do you know your husband won the toast competition? And she says, yeah, I know, he told me. And he, you know, I'm so proud of him. She said, but I just can't understand. He said, why he said that? Because the first time I had to twist his ears to come, and the second time he fell asleep. Yeah, that made my Trader Joe's day.
Good boy.
Oh, you
Back
were
to
right.
Van Beek.
You were right. She's
I was right.
pretty hot. Yeah.
Eye candy.
She had a mask on, but yeah, she's very tall too.
Yeah. Well, you can see the pic. I don't know if we were in the room that she had a picture with Derek Jeter
No.
in the examining room. And, you know, dressed with an evening gown on and Derek with a tuxedo and everything. I don't know if he was, you know, business type thing or what, but I mean, she was, glamorous. I mean, really.
And she
Does she
doesn't
take care of it? She treated your shoulder?
Yeah, she said she doesn't necessarily have to see me again. That was too bad. So I went to therapy today.
Oh, good. Good. Where over there?
She gave me a shot. Yeah, HSS.
Yeah, I go next week at the Tully because the guy that I saw prefers this one particular person that works out of the Tully
Really?
for my problem. Yeah, well, Tully's part of the HSS system too.
Uh-huh.
But when you do physical therapy, the biggest thing that you have to do is be diligent when at home.
Yeah, she gave
45
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've had a shoulder replaced and a knee replaced. And I spent more time doing the therapy at home after I went to the therapist. And that's the key to the recovery.
yeah, she
Oh,
gave,
yeah.
gave me 5 different exercises to do every day.
Well, I joined this group. I just came back from getting my 3rd gel shot in my knee, my 3 weeks in a row. So I've been doing that for like 3 years now.
It works for you?
And it works. Between that and physical therapy, I haven't had to replace my knee.
The gel did not work for me, and I ended up replacing a knee. Both. First, it was cortisone for a couple of years. Then it was the gel 1 year, and then it stopped working. So, what are you gonna do?
Well, if you're going to HSS, you're going to the right place.
Oh,
They
yeah.
got some unbelievable people who I know there. And that is the number one.
Well,
Sure.
they're the premier orthopedic hospital in the country. I mean, if you look at the creds of these doctors, most of them are consultants to professional sports organizations, and if they're investing $30 million a year in a ball player, they want to get the best advice. But
The other thing that makes them so good is that they do a lot of research.
now I was I had gone to somebody else 4 years ago, and although I wasn't told anything different, I just had a better sense of confidence. My appointment last week with this guy lasted well over 45 minutes. They took my info down, which was, I gave him my old MRI. He came in, he's a physiologist, a physiatrist, I'm sorry. And he assessed me, spoke to me, what my problems. He wanted to know. I said, do you want the long story or the short story? He says, I want to know from the beginning how this came about. So I explained to him. He was very patient, asked me questions. Then he had me just do an x-ray to make sure, to see that there was nothing changed. And after the x-ray, came back, discussed the prognosis and what we could do and how to do it. And I had been given in 2017 straight prednisone for 4 days. And that had helped me quite a bit. When I called him back in November last year, the doctor didn't want to give me prednisone. He wanted to give me the prednisolone.
Prednisolone.
Yeah, prednisolone, which is a derivative. And that really didn't do much. It helped for a short time and then dissipated. So when I told him that and everything, he says, well, if the prednisone worked better and you feel that it worked better, he says, I'll give you the prednisone. He said, I'm not going to argue what you think is better for you. And set me up. He wanted me to see this one particular person. So otherwise I could have probably had it sooner. But next week I go for my first PT evaluation. And he's hopeful that get my back stable again. But right now, since last week, since I started taking the prednisone, I've been able to sleep pretty much a full night, maybe getting up once at 4 o'clock in the morning for what, and go right back to sleep again for another couple of 3 hours. So, I feel rejuvenated already.
If you ever need a replacement, though, the question to ask the doctor is, which company makes the implant? Because there is a big, big difference, between some of these companies. Like Johnson & Johnson paid $100,000 to people, physicians, to promote their implant, and the implant failed. And Johnson & Johnson said the doctor didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
But
wasn't the J&J the one that was developed here in Stamford by a implant designer, I think. But when my wife had the implants, she had the guy that one of the top guys in the world for the implant, and I asked him, just at the time when all these pieces were, being recalled. And I said, what do you use? And he told me what he used. And I said, how'd you pick on that? He said, I was lucky. He just came out. And at that time, he'd done about 7,000 hip replacements. Yeah. Nobody's got anything to say.
Well, you talk about messing up knee replacement. Look at Roger Federer. He's a history now as far as playing, top tennis. He's on his third replacement
Of what?
of his knee.
Knee replacement.
Third operation.
Third knee replacement.
Stu, looks like with your knee replacement, you're not going to be able to play professional tennis anymore.
Oh, gee.
Your career in professional tennis is over.
Over.
Hey, he's a little over 40, so he's not his career is on the downcline anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Except just accelerated it.
Are we going to have a fall SMAS tennis thing?
Well, I know somebody who had ended up in Florida having an bone infection in their replacement knee.
Okay.
They couldn't solve it in Florida. She came up north in Stamford, and they ended up having to take out the replacement knee, put a new temporary in until the infection subsided and everything healed up. And about a year later, she had another implant. So she was crippled for about 3 years. And so it's, modern medicine is wonderful, but doesn't always solve problems.
There's just so much that can be done sometimes.
I myself was very lucky. I had a persistent ear infection that was running for about 5 years, on and off. The local doctor couldn't get a handle on it. So I went to NYU Longholm, where he recommended this doctor, and he injected something in my ear. 2 days later, there was no more infection.
I'll talk about ear doctors. Dr. Klenoff retired, Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce. Yeah, I go to Jason.
Yep.
So anyway, I mean, even the doctor in New York was shocked that it worked so well, because when I was there, he was telling me, well, we'll work on this for about 4 or 5 weeks, and then you come back again, we'll try it again. And then if that doesn't work out, then you have to have a mastoidectomy again. So, but it did 2 days. So now I'm waiting for my next infection, because it has always come back, and it probably will. So
I just heard yesterday.
It pushes it kicks the can down the road.
Yesterday we were at my wife's surgeon, and he was saying that Stamford Hospital now has 7 people in ICU with COVID, and none of them were vaccinated.
By the way, does anybody know anything about booster shots for people who are not immunocompromised, but over 60 or 65, whatever?
Not just what we read, that coming in September, which will be 8 months after people got the first ones, they're going to be available for
Don't
the general
80 and over if you if you're not immunocompromised to get the booster shot first, at least the first round.
Well, my grandson is an emergency room doctor in, of all states, Florida. And he says they come rolling in like M&Ms come out of a bag. And these people are anti-vaccine. They tell them that COVID doesn't exist. It's a hoax. And I got the flu. And they will not take a shot. Look at the guy in Texas, the governor. He supposedly had shots and he came down with COVID.
Yep.
Yeah, but got to remember, we're letting in through the Mexican border 200,000 people a month who are not tested nor have they had vaccinations into the country and distribute them all over the country so that we can increase the COVID.
That's nuts. That's not
reality.
true.
No, maybe not true. It is.
I heard that
It's
that,
all over.
that story is not really true. I've heard that.
How do you know it's not true?
Well, it's- I've
And
heard
the same way you don't know if it's true.
Probably.
Most.
It is.
so-called experts, at least you listen to CNN or whatever, say that there's no basis for that theory. That's what I heard. I mean, that's
Well, it's funny, if you're letting in 200,000 people a month into the country and you're not testing them and they don't have vaccinations, what makes you think that they don't have COVID coming in? It seemed to me illogical not to assume that a rampant infection like the Delta variant of the COVID isn't present in these people. These people magically have been immune from it.
Even if only 10%, Lloyd, have it. That's a big number coming in, Dale.
Oh, yeah, right. That's 20,000 people a month.
Listen, I had somebody have a knocking at the door. I said, "Who are you?" A COVID carrier. So and I was speaking Spanish, Lloyd. I'm sorry.
We've got to
Hey,
remember.
what's everybody's take on this Afghanistan situation? I mean, the only thing I think about is our former president made a statement a couple of years back. He said, if I do anything that affects the Middle East or militarily, I'm not going to broadcast it a month and 2 months in advance. On the day it happens, everybody will know about it. And here we got a situation that a month and a half ago, they said they were going to pull everybody out of Afghanistan and started the movements for it and everything else. And look where we ended up. I mean, don't you learn from, aren't you supposed to learn from history and from examples that work?
I'm sorry, our former president said that all the troops would be out by May 4th.
That's right. That was the agreement he had with the Taliban. So
That was the beginning.
that was the beginning, right? Oh, by the way, I think it's very important that the optics of withdrawal are more important than the actual mechanism of the withdrawal. Remember, President Biden wanted to make sure that all the troops were out by September 11th, the 20th anniversary. That to me is optics. Planning for the withdrawal of, I don't know, 25, it's hard to tell, maybe 25, 50,000 people was not in the cards to speak of. You know, they gave up their big military base with 2 runways and they just turned it over to the Taliban, basically. You know, they gave it to the Afghans, and the only thing they were able to do is fly out any airplane that could fly. They flew it out and went to Turkmenistan and the other countries around the Caucasus regions. What kind of plan is that? Unfortunately, we paid the price of not really doing a withdrawal like we should have done way back in Trump's time. Move out unnecessary military equipment because we didn't need them anymore. And that takes months. It took months to put it in, so it takes months to take it out. And
I've heard a theory that it all began with the Bush-Cheney administration. That they're the ones who started it. And it's going on. This is predictable now. There's only, you're telling people to come out and they're trying to hang on to a plane. Look at all the people we're indebted to, the translators. They're really getting a bum deal.
Mm-hmm. But remember, our friends, the Pakistanis, gave privileged sanctuary to the Taliban in the northwest region of the country, the so-called wildlands. And they, in effect, enabled the Taliban to survive the United States military for 18 years, 19 years. In effect, by the same token, they're our allies also. But they did allow the Taliban to mature, come in there, do their recruitment, their training, and then before they went back into Afghanistan. This is privileged sanctuary. We saw that in the Vietnam War, believe it or not, where Cambodian was a privileged sanctuary until tail end of the war. So the North Vietnamese just retreated to them, that sanctuary, and then came in and attacked American troops. So, we repeat the same philosophy over and over and over again. Will we ever learn? I don't think so. I just hope we never get entangled in another foreign war where we really have no security interest in it. We wanted to punish the Taliban for allowing Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda group, to flourish and train in their country. So we did that, overthrew the Taliban in 2 weeks, something like that. And by the same token, we allowed Osama bin Laden to escape into Pakistan. We allowed it because we didn't pay the warlord enough money.
I feel sorry for the women and girls.
Oh, absolutely.
Remember we had a speaker a year back, months back, or last couple of years anyway, that talked about the situation in the Middle East and the fact that it's a tribal society, not a governmental society, and that no matter what the hell we do, it's, when we're gone, it's just going to fill up and be the way it was before. And these, they have no allegiance to any government, and I heard that the other night. Somebody mentioned that on one of the news stations, or that it's the tribal society, and that in Afghanistan the government doesn't mean anything. There's the different tribes and the different groups that control.
I would like to share with you something that I witnessed myself in my profession with Afghanistan and Iraq. Before all this trouble in Afghanistan, the economic base for the production of the income and the life was always been an opium, poppy, $20 billion industry every year. And then compounded by a lack of a land tenure system and law that allowed land to pass without to be in the hand of a tribal leader. Therefore, when the Afghans, the Americans went there, they occupied cities, islands, and they transformed it, but they didn't never go to the root cause of a change in the economic system by creating new succession law, new property law, a new system and credit for agriculture. So therefore, for 20 years, the economic system of Afghanistan has been fueled. Kasai had 100 acres in the southeast Providence for poppy in the industry. So you cannot change a society if you don't change the economic system and the land tenure and the use of the land. The use of the land is the same. The income they allowed to buy harm came from always from these narcotic crops. Therefore, that war, that intervention, yes, was more a revenge. You punch my sister, I come to punch you, I kill you, Obama, Bin Laden, and then finish. It never was a really discussions on how some important elements in that really are the pillar for a change of a society to be tackled. You know, for instance, women has no right on land. So when you have no right on land, how can you pass the power and you are obliged to grow particular crops because there is somebody tax you, is the local landlord, because he can smuggle you the cash crop of the poppy. So, you know, we are talking about, we have never tackled that question of when you go in a country and you see that the system is the same after 20 years, the results we see now are, for me, natural. There's no way somebody has changed the landscape of Kabul, but they are kind of a Hollywood change, not a really deep change in the structure of the society. Therefore, you need another 3 generations.
That's the economic side. The military side is that the Afghans have been fighters for years. They got the British out of there, they got the Russians out of there, and even before the British, they fought each other. So why do we have to teach them how to fight? We're trying to teach them how to fight our way. That's one problem. The second problem is you want to fight for your country. And they didn't care very much for the country because the country didn't care for them. And the military putting in all those billions of dollars could not teach them to do that. So what did they do? They ended up holed up in their fortresses, and the Taliban took over the roads and stopped reinforcements. And then it's all the more reason for them to give up and surrender to the Taliban rather than the possibility of them being killed. And with that, I have to go to another Zoom.
Oh. And then I want to share another thing. Do you know when we had the Desert Storm, the military occupation area, you know, of course, everybody in Iraq was running around. They needed people to work, and I was involved in some humanitarian assistance, and we had the project. We paid a driver, say $10 every 2 weeks, something like that. The military said, no, we want to pay you well. We want to start to pay $10 a day. Therefore, U.S. occupation become a paymaster. A paymaster, that means, you know, you take the money and finish. So this kind of approach of pay and to be on payroll that has been a lot of the people, they build a lot of the house with the money from U.S. taxpayer through the military, at the benefit not of the farmers or other people, but more individualistic. So this approach of occupation pay and trying to change system through the army system doesn't work. And history has proven it has.
Well, the same thing happened in Iraq too, you know.
Yeah,
It's not new.
Okay, just to give an Italian and historical perspective, I went back to my Machiavelli, and once he said, a prince can stay in power if he has an army of a citizen. not an army of a mercenary. 500 years ago, it's the same.
Yeah.
If you are not belonging, you cannot get anything. You understand, everybody? Yeah. If you don't own your country, yeah, you become fighting for money.
And of course, another thing that undermined everything is that corruption.
Oh yeah.
The corruption is so endemic in these tribal countries that
Jose, if you're
that,
trying to say
no
something, you're
allegiance.
not coming through because you're unmuted, but is your microphone on?
My microphone's on.
No, Jose,
Jose,
your voice is not coming through.
you're unmuted, but your voice is not coming through. Do you have a,
For Lloyd, I hear him.
Jose?
Oh, I'll move my computer closer. Is that better?
I don't hear.
no,
Jose.
I hear you fine, Lloyd.
Oh, okay. So it's very important to recognize that corruption plays in that. Secondly, to me, the Afghan army was basically waiting for the American monthly handout. I
Yeah.
understand today it was like $150 a month. And that's all they wanted was money. They weren't worried about fighting, although there's always that element that will. And even the commandos of the Afghan army fought for a while until they got assassinated when they surrendered. Then they stopped fighting. Everybody did. And well, it remains to be seen. I speculate that a very important agricultural improvement is going to take place is that the poppy production should go up 3-4 times now that they all occupy the entire country. But that's a big cash flow for them. And since the United States cut off legitimate flows like from the IMF, rights and so forth, and stop that, so then they're going to have to depend on poppy production and distribution to bring in hard currency.
To be fair to the farmer in Afghanistan and that region, poppy is an incredible crop that is adapted to that climate.
Yeah.
What is important to say that the consumption with the poppy, say 10-20% is commercialized legally. The other 70% is illegal, of which probably 50% land in our land, in the United States, to narco gang or mafia, whatever you call. So at the other hand, if it's like the opium war in China, remember in 1885 and something like that, the same concept. When the source of the living of a country depends on an illegal activity, you have to go at the roots of that illegal activity. So that is said, but the poor farmer that Agricultural USA department was trying to teach him how to have a chicken, don't give a damn about the chicken or the cow. He prefers to have crops that he can cash $100 every 3 months.
Yeah, but we know that illegal activity is a market-oriented function. So long as there's a tremendous demand, and I see the demand increasing in like in this country and most Western countries, that's going to fuel the production to supply that demand.
Oh yeah.
You'll never stop opium addiction problems until you reduce the demand. And that's not going to happen because remember, in this country, we're giving away money so that you don't have to work. Guaranteed almost income for the year. You're going to have that. And so in this malaise of doing nothing, you look for some excitement. And one place to get excitement is opium, heroin, all the derivatives.
Oh, but could it be also to watch a channel TV of CNN or Fox News? It can be entertainment. No, you're right, Lloyd.
Look at the Soviet Union as an example. Now, there in the communist system, everybody was supposedly working and producing inferior goods for the most part, and people didn't care about them. And that malaise was solved by alcohol consumption.
Oh, no, no, but that's
You find some way of lifting your spirits. In this country, we found opioids, and fentanyl enhancements. And I don't know what the next round is going to be. I don't participate, so I really don't know. So it's very sad.
You know,
Commentary of,
50 years ago, I worked with a guy that came from, he had a doctorate's degree in engineering and other areas from Brazil. We were having a discussion and he turned around and said, you know, the Americans are stupid. He said, with all the money that you give away, the only thing you accomplish by giving your foreign aid is creating two enemies. No friends, but two enemies. So he said, what do you mean, Doc? And he said, what? He said, the first enemy is the one who doesn't get it. He's your enemy.
Mhm.
The second enemy is the one who gets it and doesn't think he gets enough. And that's it in a nutshell. I mean, and it's shown, I mean, this was 50 years ago, and he was talking about, because at that time, this guy was probably 60 years old. He wasn't a kid. And he, you know, that was his take on our foreign aid. He said, we're not doing anything. We're just giving money away. And it's true today, which is, you know, money buys everything. That's the mentality.
Well, corruption is rampant. And Johnson & Johnson made a deal with Tasmania to buy all the opium plants and turn them into fentanyl and heroin. Purdue Frederick did the same thing with the OxyContin, telling their sales reps it was non-addicting. And the one who brought the OxyContin to market, you probably all know, was Jaspal. He was a pharmaceutical chemist for Purdue Frederick. And its situation is only getting to be worse. One of the ways to control it is to what doctors can and should not be writing for. I've seen prescriptions for 100 Percocet for a 46-year-old male, perfectly written, except the doctor was a pediatrician. Now, how many pediatricians get 46-year-old patients? And are you familiar with how the pill mills work?
Yeah, but Bob, it's greed. I mean, it's all greed driven. I mean, all these abuses are greed driven. You know, there are some doctors, that are greedy and they'll write prescriptions and get a couple of $100 for a prescription and think nothing of it. Then the pharmacists, you think they would be the second line of defense when they know that they're supposed to be peddling 1,000 pills a month, and all of a sudden now they see they can peddle 10,000 pills a month. Then the drug company representatives that say, this guy's, they're not supposed to be selling that many pills, but he's making his commission on it, and all the way through. So it's everybody's got their hands in the till. I mean, something comes out that is good for the purpose, but the greed is gonna take over, that's the issue. It's not the pill. It's the greed of the people pushing the pills that they're all getting rich on it.
well,
Very rich.
you have to remember, in our tort system, the deepest pockets is the one you attack. And the big pharma and the distributors are the ones that are being attacked by the states to recover their Medicaid expenses for opioid
Yeah,
addiction.
well, why don't they
However-
go after the ones that are prescribing it and
Yeah,
put
And
them in
that's
jail?
right.
I mean,
Now,
they
what
know,
about the doctors? You can't get a pill without a doctor's prescription.
and you
the
can't get it
doctors
without a
are
pharmacist.
walking
peddling
away
it.
hands-free. They just wipe their hands, they're free. That's all. It's not my fault. That's it. I
And the
said,
pharmacist says, "Oh, it's not my fault. I got the prescription."
right, exactly.
But the
By the
fact
way-
is that you know
By the
that
way, you know, pharmacies in most states, the pharmacist is not allowed not to fulfill a bona fide prescription.
yeah,
But they don't want to run that risk of getting censored by the pharmacy board. Nobody does.
they're all protecting their butts.
So
Well, what doctors
it's
used
our
to do,
society that's at fault here. But however, we pick out the richest or the deepest pocket to attack because that's where the money is. And you can't go after the people who do it. Now, also, you know, where these first issues of opiate addiction really took place was in the Midwest, in the so-called Appalachian region. Now, Appalachian region, these people are supposed to be very poor. And right, I agree. I've been there. And so, you know, I was in Parkersburg, West Virginia, just to digress a minute. And the town had fell apart. I mean, it really was desperate.
You ever go to the
Three
Purple
banks
Pussycat?
apart. The three
Hey,
banks
Lloyd.
block.
The Purple Pussycat in Parkersburg.
That's right. But anyway, so what a lot of these people were doing is that they didn't need the pills. They went out and sold them on the black market. You know, it didn't cost them anything to get because of the government programs, and Medicaid took care of the cost. So they made money. They sold them for $1 a pill, something like that. And that was pocket money. I mean, certainly they didn't declare it. So, you know, it's our society that's at
Hold
fault.
on a second, Lloyd. Jose, on the bottom of the black of the screen, there's a mute sign, and there's an arrow next to it. If you pull up the arrow, and it says select a microphone, because we can't. I know you're talking, but we can't hear a word you're saying.
I
So
hear you.
on the lower left, there's the microphone for mute. There's an arrow. Unmute yourself. Now unmute. Okay, hit that arrow and it says select the microphone.
He's talking.
This one?
Yeah.
Now, yes, we can hear you. Finalmente.
Okay, what I was saying, you know, there's this problem of the drug addicts who have a pain and they go to the medical practitioner and tell them, I need this medication because I have pain. Well, unfortunately, the pain is true. They do have pain when they don't get the drugs. They have pain. What can you do? In theory, I mean, they should not be taking drugs, so you don't prescribe that. You don't prescribe that. What happens then? They go out and they get it in the street. And that's even worse. I mean, there has to be some way that you can provide some medication to these people, medication for pain, and because they need it, and they will get it. If they don't get it in the medical office, they will get it outside, which is even worse. No, it's a horrendous problem, and it's a very, very bad problem. There's no solution. No.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, if they are put in a controlled situation to do something and eliminate that dependency rather than feeding the habit, wouldn't it end up being more cost effective to do that and get them off?
Of course, it will be a lot better to solve the problem and in such a way that they will not need the medication. Yes, but in the meantime, they come in. It's horrendous. It's horrendous. It's very, very, very bad. And they do things like they demand. I had people demanding endoscopies, and they have no reason whatsoever for that. But what they want that for? Because of the medications, to get medication. People who leave the teeth rot and infected to go to the dentist and to get medication because of that. They present that to the dentist. And you can ask the dentist, and they will tell you. It puts the practitioners in a very difficult position, very, very difficult. And if you leave the prescription pads around, they will steal it. So have to be very careful about that too. They will steal it, and it happens. It happens.
But
Jose, let me say that how do you tell the difference when the opiate medication is relieving you of pain when you're at the point where the pain is subsided, but you can't tell the difference, then you go over to addiction afterwards. How do you determine that line of demarcation between help and disaster?
It's very difficult because you have to believe what they tell you. You're supposed to believe what they tell you. And then you have to think, you have to get very good reasons to doubt of that. I mean, if there is history, fine. But they also get sick. They also get sick. No, it's a horrible problem. It's a horrible problem. No very good reason about that. Okay.
But there are certain specialties within medicine that people should never be writing for these addictive products, where the dermatologist should be writing for 100 Percocet. I can't think of any condition where that would occur. Would a dentist have to write for such a large quantity? Would a pediatrician have to write for large quantity? All these people who have to write for quantities should get prior authorization from the DEA. Then the pharmacy has to call up to see that they called in the DEA and verify the authorization number. This would eliminate a lot of people who should not be even writing for the pain medication, because they're the ones who are starting the patient to become addicted.
Okay. Yes, if the drug addict with pain, it does not get a medication from the doctor or from the dentist, they will go out and they will get it from the friendly drug merchant in the neighborhood. I mean,
the pain medication is fine, but a lot of things, orthopedists used to go ahead. I remember when I had my shoulder replaced, 80 Vicodin when I left. How many did I have left over? 80 Vicodin. I had a knee replacement, 90 Percocet. What did I have left over? 90 Percocet. A lot of this is written unnecessarily. And people come in and say, oh, you're having this done? They got in their mind they're going to be in pain when they're actually going to be taking an anti-inflammatory or Tylenol and do their exercise. And doctors used to go in the past when they would bring them up, the doctor would say, in my professional opinion, this is what I believe the patient needed. And they would get off with that.
I don't know about your doctors, but when I had my knees done, I was in a lot of pain, and he prescribed Percocet or something like that, but only in relatively small quantities. Like after 5 days, I had to call him back. I had to call him back to get more, and sometimes he wouldn't even do that same drug. He'd do a weaker drug. But not
That's
never. I got 90. I got maybe 20.
10, 20.
yeah. Well, now you
You know,
can't
there's
get
been-
that from the orthopedist. Like HSS totally revamped the quantity that a patient can get,
That's a good thing.
and which is a good thing.
You know, the story went around years ago that Medicaid required, most states Medicaid, formularity required 30-day supply of medicines. But you get 30 days of painkillers. But my real point, remember it, was you go to the doctor. He can spend 2 minutes with you, if you're lucky, maybe 5, if you're exceptionally lucky. In that period of time, he has to do all the work, diagnostic, and the least thing he's concerned about is if he overprescribes opioids. Believe me, they do it a quick rush, broad brush, boom, you're finished. Ready for the next patient. Because Medicare, Medicaid even pays less. They don't pay more than like 50% general practitioner to maybe 80% of what they customarily charge for specialists. What happens to the rest of the 20%? So there's a real problem. I really think is our medical systems are contributing to the problem because one, we underpay for service and government systems. Medicare is notorious, but it's a little better than Medicaid. Medicaid is the worst. So what are the doctors going to do? They got to meet their overhead. They got to live a high life too, you know. And so it's a very we're caught in a vice where we want great medical determination, but we don't want to really pay for it.
Okay, well, it's 11, almost 11:15, and guys want to stay on, but at this point, I'm going to sign off and wish everyone a good week. And next week, I guess, is our last summer get together. And then in 2 weeks, we'll go back to Zoom meetings in September. And remember, on the 15th of September, we're going to have our meeting instead of the 16th, because the 16th is High Holy Day.
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur, that Thursday. So we'll have our meeting on the Wednesday the 15th, which is unusual for us. I don't think we've done this in the past, but because we're 1 week away from the picnic and have something, you know, get some last minute stuff in. So we'll see you next week at 10 o'clock, and enjoy the weekend. Stay safe, stay well, and be careful, guys. It's out there.
I won't be here next week. I'll be on vacation.
Oh, how nice.
Enjoy. Have a great time.
No, that's unfair.
Well, actually,
Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.
Well,
yeah,
Okay, take care.
I may show up.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.